Welcome to the L1 pyramid. Ta-da! So today, I don't know why I'm laughing so much, it's not that funny. But, okay, it is kind of funny though because, hang on, let me show you a picture of my setup because I need to stack it really tall. Look at this. That's crazy. So anyway, this is gonna be, you guys have all watched Dance Moms, you know the drill. I'm gonna walk through and do a pyramid of my least favorite to favorite con law courses. I'm gonna rank them and talk about them and be brutally honest in the fashion of Abby Lee Miller. My bruise from the Springs really looks like she is on full display today. That's okay. I can't spoil what the least favorite one is, even though it's very obvious. Hang on. Nobody look, okay? Alright. So, yeah. Also, I really hope this stays because I do have my first day of work tomorrow and I would like to not have a big bruise on my face. But anyway, let's hop to it. So, at the bottom of the pyramid, we have, you're not ready for this, nobody would have ever guessed this. Civ Pro. Can you even see that? Is anybody even gonna be able to see this? Is this a flop? Am I flopping? I won't be able to know until I get it on my computer. It says Civ Pro. So, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with it. I don't think I can move this any closer. Can I zoom in on it? Ah, there we go. That's the way. Civ Pro. Undeniably my least favorite of them all. Absolutely hated Civ Pro. Was awful. The only redeeming thing about Civ Pro is that the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure is organized in a very cohesive, understandable fashion, and that there's a case where they throw Barbie dolls in the courtroom. Christian V. Mattel, it's who I named. Hang on, please hold. My first ever weighted stuffed animal, the sloth that Mom got, is named Christian V. Mattel after that case because I just think that case is so funny. And this was Jordan and my child. The route, I mean, still is, but this was like our baby we raised from birth, L1. So anyway, this is Christian V. Mattel, and he's the only redeemable thing about Civ Pro. I really did not care for Civ Pro. It was a 2-hour-long class period in seats that were not very comfortable, and nobody was enthused about pretty much anything about Civ Pro. So Civ Pro is at the bottom. Let me go put Christian V. Mattel down for his nap. Next up, and I'm actually going to do the next two at the same time because I was a little conflicted on the order to do them in, and I'm kind of having a hard time getting the purple off. So we have Legal Writing 2, and then we have Legal Writing 1. Let's zoom in because I still am not sure if you can see any of that. So we have Civ Pro, we have Legal Writing 2, and then Legal Writing 1. So that's the situation. They're side by side. However, I was really conflicted on how to rank them because there were things that I really loved about Legal Writing 2. I actually ended up really enjoying oral argument. I liked making my little folder. I liked the period of class. Like, I felt like we got ample time to prepare in class presentations. We got a lot of really good feedback. We had a lot of resources, a lot of time with the TAs, and so I really felt prepared for oral argument, and I ended up quite liking that section of the class. However, I felt like we had so much guidance in Legal Writing 1, and I really appreciated the PowerPoints, and I appreciated how there were multiple assignments. It made it much easier to gauge, like, if I was understanding the material, whereas in Legal Writing 2, I felt like there were times when I really wasn't sure how well I was grasping things. And So yeah, I don't know, there were just different things I liked with each professor. There were different things I liked with each of the assignments. And again, I definitely preferred the persuasive writing in Legal Writing 2 versus the objective writing in Legal Writing 1. So there are things that I really liked about Legal Writing 2, but ultimately Legal Writing 2 caused me a lot more stress just because there were so few graded assignments, which is just a stressful factor. Whereas in Legal Writing 1, I feel like I was a little less stressed because we had a lot more benchmarks and way to tell, you know, like how we were doing and where we were. So ultimately, stress was the deciding factor between how to rank these two, and so I went with Legal Writing 1 first. Even though there were a lot of things I did really enjoy about Legal Writing 2. It just kind of depended. Also, I got sick and during like the most important part of Legal Writing 2, like right the week my brief was due, and it was just awful. So that also probably was a big deciding factor, but so stress was the main deciding factor between these two, but I feel like they're pretty equal. Next we have property. Let's zoom in for the people. Legal writing, and then property. Okay, so this one I feel like what I'm gonna say about it may be a little controversial, because property is, from what I've heard, known as like the class that people dislike the most out of all of the doctrinal law classes. However, I think under, let's say, different circumstances, I could have really enjoyed property, because I don't know, I mean, learning about, I thought a lot of it was really interesting, like learning about the right to water, learning about who has, like, it was bringing out the animal planet in me, like who has the right to water, who has the right to natural resources, who has the right to animals, who has the right to, like, you know, go on different pieces of land and trespassing. And it made me think of Northwoods Law, which I used to watch a lot when I was a kid, before it became more about stupid teenagers, and it was like actually about the law of like natural forests and stuff. Like I found that really interesting growing up, and so I really liked all of that stuff. And some of the readings are just silly because it's about neighbors having beef with each other, and so plus the textbook was free. It was open source property, which was really awesome. That's the only one of any class that has had a free textbook, which makes sense because it's property, so of course property professors are going to want property to be free. It made sense, but it still was just like, wow, so you can make these books free. Interesting. So yeah, but it just, despite all of that, it was just a lot. It was a lot of reading, and again, 2-hour-long class, having to sit there, and we had some makeup classes too. That some days I had like 2 blocks of property, like 4 hours of property in a day, 6 to 8 hours of property in a week some weeks. Like that's just, it's too much. It's too much. And so I think in another life where it was less condensed, property I could have enjoyed much more, because some of the subject matter I actually thought was kind of interesting, and that doesn't even get into like some of the different like marriage cases that you have to read, or I don't know, there's just a bunch of things in it that were just kind of, you just feel like you're reading drama. So I don't know, property wasn't all bad, it just, I feel like they kind of set that class up to be frustrating, and it could be arranged much better. Next, we have legal professions. This was my seminar course about, you guessed it. No, I'm so upset. I accidentally clicked end video. I wanted to do this all in one video without having any cuts. And my camera's kind of on one, but I don't know what I should do. Should I restart? I don't want to do it again. I'm just going to cut it together on Sony Vegas. Whatever, legal professions. That's the one where I had my networking assignment. I had to meet a bunch of different people, write about their careers. It was a good seminar course just for learning about the different kind of legal jobs you could do. I really liked the professor. It wasn't really a heavy course work-wise. It was pass-fail. It was just like a solid breather class, but I still feel like I got a lot out of it. So that's legal professions. And then next up, we have contracts. Let's zoom in without ending the recording this time, like I just did the last time. I'm very upset. Contracts. Yippee! Oh, let's not zoom in on Cipro. So contracts is next. I really liked contracts. In fact, I think in the video, probably in my, 1.6 JD video, I think I said contracts was my favorite of the classes that I did. And that is largely because we just had the best contracts professor ever. I would listen to her teach anything. She was so fabulous, so easy to understand, did such a wonderful job explaining. But when I look back, contracts itself, while there were some interesting cases, shout out to the chicken case, love the chicken case. What is the meaning of a chicken? Like, there were some interesting things in there that I liked, but at the same time, I don't know. Some of it was kind of just boring, but then also some of it was really easy to understand because of the laws surrounding it are, as you can imagine, some of the contracts all very written out. And so it was, I feel like, one that was, it didn't feel as ambiguous as, ironically, it didn't feel as ambiguous as some of the other legal work. So, I don't know, I really liked contracts. It feels weird that it's like, it's not even in the second row. I feel like it should be there, but that's just where it landed. So, that's that. Alright, next, we have Fun IP. I really liked Fun IP. I didn't quite know what to expect. Fun IP, yippee! It was so fun. I did not quite know what to expect because I really had no academic exposure to intellectual property before this class, but I ended up really enjoying it, especially the copyright section. I'm excited to take copyright next semester. I just found it all really fascinating. I feel like I understood the patent section pretty well, just from like my science background. I felt like I was able to, like, a lot of it when we were reading the cases, the professor was like, oh, like, you know, just for the purposes of this class, you don't actually have to understand the, you know, intricacies of whatever science they're analyzing. But I was reading, I was like, no, I actually do. Like, I was excited. I was like, I do have a bachelor's degree in this. I do understand what's going on. And so that was fun and interesting. And then trade secrets, I felt like was just very, like, they're kind of like, it is what it is. Trademarks was interesting. I like trademarks. I was very excited to text Mom, is Embroidery Lane trademarked, and like analyze what kind of trademark I thought it would be. But copyright was definitely the star of the show for me. I mean, I loved everything about it. So I'm excited to take copyright next semester, just as like Taylor Swift law and learn more. It's just, there's so many different things, like just pirating and re-recording music and just everything. There's just so much that is encompassed by copyright, and I found it all very, very fascinating. Movies and books and how long they last and parodies versus like just, and there's just so many new things with like the streaming world. I really liked it. So Fun IP gets to go there, which is, there's a little chipmunk on the rock outside. But something that I think is interesting, just like subject matter wise, is because a lot of IP law is, of course, contractual law, but the subject matter in Fun IP is just so fun. Like, a lot of it was so silly, and so I just really enjoyed it. Or it's not even that it was silly, it was just very interesting to me personally. Like, different things that were mentioned randomly that we talked about. I know on the first day we talked about Little Women, we talked about Taylor Swift a lot, we talked about Twilight and therefore My Chemical Romance, we talked about Cheer, we talked about Lady Gaga and that lawsuit, and just everything, like my favorite little pipeline with all of that. We talked about Cheer music, we talked about so many things. We talked about, inadvertently, I just dropped something on the piano, inadvertently we talked about Brendan's rights to Panic at the Disco. We talked about, there's like so many things that I could apply to things that interest me, and yeah, I really liked it. Okay, next up, and this one was very surprising to me, we have criminal law. In other words, how to get away with murder. I am very surprised that this is up so high, just because I thought that I worked so hard, it took so much time to write out all these little cards, you know? I was really surprised how much I enjoyed it, just because I thought it was going to be, and it was at times, I thought it was going to be just like very triggering and... Stop dropping these on the piano. But I thought it was just going to be like very, very hard to read and think about, but the way the professor had the class set up and the way the textbook was, I really loved this textbook. This was one of the best case books that I had read. I didn't, because sometimes, especially for this one, the note cases in the book are just so dense and there's just so much you have to prepare for. It's like you're reading the few main cases, and then after the main cases, there'll be like 15 different note cases. And so like if you're preparing to be cold called or you're preparing just to understand the main case, there's so much other stuff that you have to be prepared for just because the way the book is set up, and it's just not the best setup. But for criminal law, the book was so nice. Like there were notes, but they were very condensed, and it like told you the reason why we're, you know, talking about this case is because compare the big case you just read to this fact from this case. And it was very like short and sweet, to the point, and it made it so easy to understand what they were trying to say. And I really liked the professor. I really liked his way of explaining things. You can tell he has a lot of interesting experience with the subject, and it was just, I don't know, I feel like he made everything more palatable and was very sensitive when talking about different subjects, and I just... whatever that was. But so I just feel like I got a lot out of it. I don't know. I thought it was really interesting, and I had a lot of fun learning about it all. And yeah, I don't know, I just really liked it. I was very surprised by that one. Honestly, if you had asked me this time last semester, I probably would have thought criminal law would be like down here or something, just because I was really worried about how I would be processing reading about really dark stuff every day. But it was, I feel like with the way the professor set up the class and the way we had discussions, it made it a little easier to digest. But all very interesting. Not something that I think I could ever or would want to ever have a career in, but very interesting to learn about. I really like that class. Next. Next! Torts! I know we've all been waiting for torts. Torts, oh, it's just so silly. I love torts. Torts, exclamation point. Torts was so good. I had such a ball in torts. It was such a fun class. Professor was phenomenal. We had such fun. I got cold called. It's still the most intense or longest or most preparation for a cold call we've had, and I was probably on the stand for like 30, 40 minutes. I don't know, but I felt like I did really well. It was on like a not medical malpractice, but kind of in line with that, so that was good. I felt like I understood the like background of the case on a scientific level, but also the legal aspect of it, and I just found it really interesting. And I found a lot of the cases really interesting. It's just any laws that don't end up being criminal, and so as you can imagine, that encompasses a lot. And there's just so many different bizarre cases. Like people are running with fireworks in their pockets 500 years ago. People are trying to shoot pigs. People just do anything in tort law. There's sinkholes. People are transporting dangerous chemicals, but like in a normal legal way, and like just stuff happens. But it's always so bizarre, and it just was so interesting to learn about from just, I don't even know. It was just interesting to learn about all these crazy things that happen, and it's just, I feel like since it's such a broad area of law, just because it's just covering like negligence, and there's a lot of different things that you can be, obviously there's other aspects as well, but the main element is negligence, and there's so many different ways that you can be negligent or be affected by negligence, and so it's kind of hard to hammer down specific laws for that. And so it's definitely an interesting class. There's a lot of bizarre and interesting cases to read about, and we had a very fun professor, and so that combination made it all very fun. However, but alas, in first place, Dun, dun, dun. It's kind of stuck. Ready? Con Law 1! Yay! Con Law 1 at the top. I loved Con Law so much. Boom. No, go in. Yep. I loved Con Law so much. I feel like I got so much out of Con Law. I just found it so interesting. We just, like, you learn so much of just the foundational stuff about how the overall government of the country is set up and with the states and everything, like all the, you know, kind of clerical basic stuff that you have to learn. But there's just so much interesting stuff. I think really what I liked about it is because it's such a history class. And I love history classes. Like, I remember when I started my undergraduate degree at UCF, I was really sad because I realized I would never, I mean, at that time, I thought I would never ever take another history class again, just because it's not in the foundations of a health sciences degree. And I didn't need to do it for just like my general education because I did it in high school with my, I think I did 4 AP history classes in high school. So like I was covered. And even my last, I'm just dropping this thing everywhere. And even like my last year of high school, I did Gov and Econ. And that's just not the same as doing like AP World or even APUSH or Human Geo. Oh well. But I think that's why I liked Con Law so much, was because it's just such a history class. You learn so much about so many different time periods and the laws around them, but also just like as a result how people were living around those laws and finding ways to get past them or change them or, you know, tolerating them. And it just says so much about like the different historical time periods, and you learn about it so much with so many different things. And I just thought it was really cool. And just especially like right now there's so many different things in the law that have changed and are constantly changing in comparison with things that haven't happened since like 1937. And you just learn about that and it's like, this is kind of crazy. And it's just kind of fascinating to read about and like study like the patterns and trends, you know, like during the Great Depression and like onward into the 30s, and then how like things change with like, it's a history class. And like the thing, like just analyzing like our current government with like historical governments and like similar laws that are being passed versus how things are different, and just seeing how everything is kind of culminating and playing out both in those past instances, but also how things are playing out today. And it was just very interesting to me, and I really, really enjoyed it. And the professor was so super passionate about the subject and has so much lived experience with litigating things in constitutional law. And that was also just really interesting to hear about, and like, you know, talking about a law or a certain thing in the textbook, and then him being able to say, well, we did this, like, you know, had this project or, you know, these clients, and we worked on this issue. And so it was just really interesting to hear about. And the thing that's interesting to me is that it was the same professor for Civ Pro and for Con Law 1, and it's my least favorite class and my favorite class. And so I feel like there's definitely something to be said for how much I enjoyed Con Law and also dislike Civ Pro, because it was, you know, same room, same professor, same, you know, exam format. Like I was very familiar with the format for both classes, and so it just really, I just was very enthralled with the subject matter in Con Law 1. I thought it was really cool. There are some things that were less interesting, like you talk about the Commerce Clause for a really, really long time, and that's not the most interesting thing in the world, but then there's like parts about it that are really interesting, because they're like, child labor isn't involved in commerce, but like lottery tickets are, and it's just like all these random things that I don't know. And I think the thing too is like there's so much in con law that like doesn't make sense, but also like there's some things that make sense when you read it, and then you read the dissent and you're like, that doesn't make sense at all, or this may, like there's just so many different opinions and so much history and so many different really important matters that are covered. And so it's just learning about the history of literally everything And I've probably said history so many times in this. History, huh? But yeah, I don't know. I just found it very, very fascinating, and definitely I feel like I got the most out of it. I think definitely I got the most out of con law, just like from an educational point and on like a personal level, and just I think general excitement about learning and wanting to know more. Torts was definitely the most fun one. Fun IP was definitely the most me one, like of all the, like, I don't know, just being like, wow, like I know about these things, or I understand these things, or I already kind of had, like, I heard about this happening, or I was obsessed and hyperfixated with this cheer music issue in 2017. So got the most out of it, most fun, most me, best professor. And yeah, that's my review. Now I'm at 17 minutes, and that includes the other, I still have to add the other one, so I guess I would have timed out anyway, but oh well. So that's my 1L year and my pyramid for all the courses. Civ Pro will not be making the dance team next semester, and I guess this, see, I would say this kind of makes con law Maddie, but there's no way. Like, if all of these had to be, oh my god, I have 2 minutes, speed run. Which one of these are the dance moms? So, okay, I'm gonna say this is Chloe, because Chloe's my favorite. I always love Chloe so much. Torts is gonna be Nia, because she is the most fun to watch. I love Nia. Criminal law, oh my god. Who should I make criminal law? Oh, Kendall! My little Kendall can be criminal law. Okay, I'm gonna make legal professions Jojo Siwa, because she's the only one who really had much of a profession, and I'm sure she has legal issues too. I'm gonna say that, okay. I'm gonna say that contracts is Maddie, because she is very good, but like she's not always like really interesting, but like it's good to watch, like, you know what I'm saying. Okay. Okay, property is gonna be Vivienne, because she got her finger on her mom's ring and hopes she can still dance, and like a ring is a form of property, and you talked about marital, but yeah, Vivienne. Who am I forgetting? Oh my god, Brooke and Paige, we're just gonna make the sisters 1 and 2. And then I still have Civ Pro. I don't know if there's anybody I dislike enough to make Civ Pro. Oh god, I feel like I'm still forgetting one of the mains. Chloe, Maddie, Brooke, Paige, Nia, Kendall. I did Vivienne. Vivienne's an extra. Sophia Lucia is not. No, Asia. I feel like there's somebody. You know what, that girl, what's her name? The bully one who's really tall and was always trying to get on that team with that mom that Christy got in a fight with in New Orleans, and then Christy and Chloe had to leave the competition. Her. Whatever her name is, the tall one that we don't... What if I just look up dance mom girl nobody likes? Really quick. Oh my god, I have 10 seconds. Dance mom girl nobody likes. I think her mom's name is Leslie. Oh my god. Search, 5 seconds. Peyton! Haha! Bye, see you on Friday.